the last video, we have seen that even if we have a missing market, in this case, the market for the right to smoke, even if we have a missing market, we can come to a private solution that is Pareto efficient. And this insight is the essence of the Coase theorem, named after this gentleman here, Ronald Coase. So what the Coase theorem tells us in a nutshell is that if trade is possible, so if basically one party can pay the other for the right to do something or for not doing as much as they want, and if the property rights are well established, then that market may actually exist, even though initially we think it doesn't exist, but it may actually exist. And the reason is that we can get those Pareto improvements by money, in this case, being traded. So we had already the example of if the smoker owns the right to smoke, the non-smoker can pay the smoker for smoking less. On the other hand, if the non-smoker owns the right to clean air, they can charge a fee for smoking, and so they can get basically money in exchange for having air that is less clean. And that may actually result in a Pareto optimum. So the actual Coase theorem, so the definition of it, you can read here. In a competitive economy with complete information and zero transaction costs, bargaining over externalities will lead to Pareto efficiency, provided property rights are well defined. So what this means is that we have a lot of assumptions that go in there. Okay? So we have, first of all, we have to have a competitive economy. So there shouldn't be anything like a monopoly or anything like that. We have complete information so that each person knows the other person's endowment points. Each person knows the other person's utility functions. Then we have to have zero transaction costs, and we have well-defined property rights. Okay, so there are many reasons why this can break down, but it can also work. And again, think about it in the sense that if both parties know each other very well, or if it's very clear who has the property rights, and there is maybe just two parties that bargain over a common resource, then actually the Coase theorem may apply in reality. If you have a market or if you have an economy with many participants where information, not everyone has the same amount of information about the other market participants, where it's tricky to bargain a solution, then probably the Coase theorem breaks down. Okay, but if it holds, then we come to the situation that we've talked about in one of the last videos, which is the one we see here, or the one we see on the next slide, which is either A charges B for smoking less, or B charges A for smoking. Okay, so once again, here we have the endowment point, the red star, the point at which A owns the right to smoke. And so they can smoke as much as they want, and they have €100 worth to spend on other things. But what we also have is that this is not Pareto efficient because it's at the margin of that lens, and we can actually move into that lens to a Pareto efficient point that lies on the contract curve. Remember, the contract curve was the line that is the locus of all Pareto efficient allocation. Right? And so we can, through that negotiation, establish what otherwise a market would establish. Namely, we have a market price for not smoking, and that market price is basically the slope of that budget constraint that you can see here, the blue dashed line. and we can find an optimal point here that lies on the contract. What is that optimal point? Well, B pays A for smoking less. The other example here is one where B owns the property rights to clean air. So we have here a scenario where the indifference curves that go through the endowment point here at the green star at the very bottom, again, that endowment point is not a Pareto efficient allocation because the marginal gains from smoking one more cigarette is actually very, very high for person A. So person A has a very high willingness to pay for smoking and has the marginal benefit for the first cigarette is higher than for the second and for the third and for the fourth. And so the willingness to pay is very, very high. And that also means that person B can extract quite a lot for those first couple of cigarettes that they allow A to smoke. And so what will happen as well, again, is that B charges A up until the point where those two indifference curves are tangential to one another. And that's that black dot here. And that is then, again, similar, or it's the same as a market equilibrium. So we have a Pareto efficient allocation, even though there is no actual market. But through bargaining, we can actually get there. And so to sum these two scenarios up, we have, it really depends where the property rights lie. That determines where we end up, whether we end up in a point in an allocation that we can call A or in an allocation that we can call B. But unless one or both these people have very strong preferences for either clean air or for smoking, we will actually achieve an allocation that requires bargaining and that requires trading of the right to smoke or the right to clean air.